It is now my honor and pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Stephanie Brown. So Dr. Brown is an internationally recognized expert on the treatment of alcoholics, adult children of alcoholics, and all addicts and their families. Based on her research defining a developmental process of active addiction and recovery, she is a licensed clinical psychologist with more than 35 years of clinical experience, a researcher, a consultant, and a frequent lecturer in the field of addiction. Right here, I'd like to add that she's also an amazing friend of mine and a friend of Adolescent Counseling Services, and has brought her expertise training our interns for many, many years, so thank you. So Dr. Brown is also the author of 11 academic and popular books centering on addiction and recovery. In addiction, she is the founder and director of the Addiction Institute, an outpatient counseling and therapy program in Menlo Park. She was also the founder and director of the Stanford Addiction Clinic at Stanford University Medical Center. As a consultant to clinicians, treatment centers, and researchers, Dr. Brown is a sought-after presenter to both professional and lay audience. So it's my pleasure and our privilege to welcome Dr. Brown.
Oh, what's that? Oh, just a minute. Just a minute. Hello. Oh, hi. Hi. Well, I'm just about to start a lecture. Yes. Can I call you later? Yeah, lovely group of people here. Adolescent Counseling Service. Okay, I'll talk to you later. Bye. Now, where was I? Thank you for that. You get it. You get it. That's what I'm going to talk with you about, what I just did. That's what I'm going to talk with you about. What are we doing? Where are we in our society? Where are we? What's happening? First of all, the manners that I mentioned before I had Laurel ring my phone, the manners I mentioned are to say thank you to Adolescent Counseling Services, the Esther Ting Foundation, and all the others. I am a fan of local. I am a fan of small steps. You're going to hear that from me by the end of my talk. We have become all about the next big thing, and only big, only bursting, only now, only fast. Okay? That's what we are about. We are about interruption. We are about now. Do it now. We are about only action. Now, I am not against any of those, but what's happening is, I believe that as a society, we have totally lost sight of developmental processes, incremental steps, engagement with others, engagement with parents, teachers, peers, engagement with a system that gives us time to learn, to reflect. We disparage self-reflection as a society now because everything is pointed outward, not inward. Everything is pointed out to the outcome ahead. And once we get there as fast as we can, then we gear up to start the next chase for whatever that outcome may be. I would like to take one moment to introduce Karen Hamilton to you. Karen, will you stand up and wave, please? Yay for Karen. She is the author of the pamphlet. She's the author of the pamphlet you found on your chair this morning. She is a marriage and family therapist in Marin County, and you will find that the prize of the day. This is an unbelievably powerful guidebook. You will be asking me for the fix. What can we do? What can we do? And I'm going to be telling you that the answer is in slowing down. The answer is in learning to pause again, to self-reflect. Some of you will understand that. Some of you will be frustrated that I am not going to give you the fix. For our kids, You're here, maybe, because you're worried about the kids. I'm going to be talking a lot about you, about the grown-ups, and about society, and all of the impact on our kids. Okay? Our society, as an addicted culture that is out of control, having an enormously negative as well as positive influence on our kids today. I'm here to accent the negatives today, but I want to reassure you I am not against technology, not at all. Okay? I try not to be rigid and inflexible. I try not to be right or wrong, okay? But I am here to talk about the problems. I would also like to thank Laurel in the back, who's selling books and helping me with technology. I'm not against technology, I'm still afraid of it. So I always tell people, I just wish that I were better at it. And fortunately, I have found the team to help me with that. So we will see how we go today. The title of Adolescent Counseling Services conference today is Protecting Our Developing Youth. And what does that say to us? Who are the protectors? Do our youth need to be protected? Yes, indeed, they do. They do. And again, difficult message from me is how we are failing our youth today. The focus of the title is on loss of control, the loss of the center that used to be a family core. You could count on the family to hold its own, to have a structure, whatever that might be, whatever the guiding, organizing principles. We used to look to family to be the holder, the container, that structure. And I am here to tell you that we have lost that center. We've lost the structure. Many families have lost a foundation. They are not held by anything because so much has been externalized outside. So much has been externalized into the palms of our hand or the tips of our fingers. The answers no longer lie inside of us. We don't look for knowledge to inform, for the information for us. We look outside. Many, many young people have said to me, ask Siri. Ask Siri. Okay? We have modeled looking outside when you have any need, any question. This is all very positive, of course, but at the same time, what's coming back in? What are we able to reflect on, to take in, to internalize? I'm here to say, sadly, I think as a culture, we are internalizing mass chaos, confusion, and what I will detail for you is a society that operates at the level of 4-year-olds on the playground. All around us. Why is that? Because we have come to value acting on impulse. If you don't act now, you will be left behind. If you don't start to worry about your kids, building their resumes at kindergarten, and recently I heard preschool. Preschool, tests to get into preschool, tests of the resume kind. Okay? We have lost our way, and we have become out of control, guided by a deep anxiety, cultural anxiety, and fear that we will be left behind. And so the structure of the family that we used to look to, that used to hold us, is collapsed, has collapsed, and in many, many cases is gone. Okay? You look for what typifies structure. Shared values, shared beliefs, shared rituals, such as dinner time. In many families in our area, dinner time is gone as a family event. You catch it on the run, you catch everything on the run. And it's rush, rush, rush. Kids in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, very young kids, as well as adolescents, are upset. They tell us, we're always rushed. I am always rushing, but somebody is always rushing me. And they want slow time. They need slow time. But we worry that that will cost them and it will cost us. My emphasis is not on technology and its problems, though the problems that I want to talk about are expressed through technology. So it will sound to you again like, whoo, she's against technology. I'm talking about speed. That's really what I see as the cultural addiction of our time. How much faster can we go? I just got a blurb on my email, which I use and love. I just got a blurb from an author. My book is coming out, more, better, faster. That phrase is in my book as a problem. That's the symbol of how we think now. Can't you get on with this? We shouldn't be bored ever. We should be always entertained. Entertained, that means I wait for what is coming toward me. I expect to be passive and to let the entertainment come, okay, to take the information in. But I have less and less capacity building, less and less ability to internalize and then use what I take in for my development. That, I think, is the huge problem of our world today and our young people. I come from a developmental perspective, child psychology, and have used it for all of my theories, all of these years. That's not outcome. Development is unfolding. We need to look to pediatrics. We need to look to the well-being studies. What's normal development for kids? What was it? What does it look like now? And what I will say that it looks like now, too often, is an arrest in development. The normal tasks of development, behavioral, cognitive, emotional, are being subsumed and arrested in the service of externalizing internal experience into our machines, into being on social media, into being outside of ourselves. This is addiction. This is looking outside to feed ourselves. And I say, if we're lucky, it is arrest in development. Let me back up just a moment to talk about this idea of speed. Where did it come from? Where did I get it? Well, you heard that I've been an addiction professional for decades and decades, and I watch. I'm a person who watches and unfolding. And I learned all about developmental processes studying AA, studying the people in AA, and what happens when people stop drinking. What happens? We used to, years and years ago, we used to think, well, all you need to do is stop. Addiction is behavioral, just stop and everything will be fine. This is not how things work. With addiction, with any change at all, with changes in society. You stop something very negative, very destructive, and then there is a period of vulnerability, high chaos often. Things look worse, almost always, because you have left a pattern behind and you don't have anything to replace it yet. We have little understanding of the structural supports that people need early on in their recovery. Little understanding of that because we want people to look good. We want people to get back to work, to look good, And we have, again, the absence of understanding that the new learning of recovery, the new learning of any change is not going to come naturally from within. We may find something we lost and reclaim it. For young people, I believe we are complicit in aborting their development, pressing, pressure, in the service of success, in the service of opportunity. We are complicit to take from them the environment and the structures of home, school, peer relationships, playground, to take from them all the necessary experiences for healthy development. We are giving them genius skills with the computer that I envy. But socially, interpersonally, basis of attachment, their relationships with people, huge difficulties. Same exact description fits for their parents, for all of us who have turned into the computer, the technology, to replace in-depth relationship, which looks like and sounds like reciprocity, mutuality. Kids don't start out able to build and hold a conversation. Young children, they're together parallel play, ideally on the playground. Now they're parallel play at 3 years old on their iPads together. Mothers tell me, 3 years old. Parallel play. Then in child development, kids grow up to start to talk with one another, to navigate and negotiate on the playground, to take turns, to listen. This is what we have given up. The idea that it is of value to listen to other. Only through listening will we be able to develop into capacities, internal capacities for reciprocal relationships. And that's what healthy adolescence and adult development is based on. Healthy mutuality, the ability to have empathy, to mirror, and to pause, to listen, and to build on dialogue and conversation. We have lost all of those values. So in the mid-1990s, my then teenage daughter was fluent in the new social language of stress. There is a social language of stress. I'm overwhelmed, pressured. Life was too fast, she told me. There's too much to accomplish and there's not enough time. Middle-class kids were building their resumes by middle school, this is in the mid-90s, with a growing fear that no college would take them. That is still what is the norm. They couldn't pile up the successes or live fast enough to make the cut, any cut. They began to develop panic disorder, depression, tremendous chronic anxiety because they could not keep up this pace. And everything they turned out, the products of our society seemed to dissipate in thin air. They couldn't get a response. Nothing came back because it was on to the next product. Build that resume. And here we see the norms that happen for kids on social media. Press the button, see who's on. Wait for a response. We have a culture, adolescents and grown-ups, a culture that looks outside for approval, for affirmation. We are all on the hunt for something to come back, partly because our relationships are so much emptier than they used to be, and we settle for it because we have work to do. You work 90 hours a week and it's a badge of success. Now, again, that was the 1990s. Some of you, I imagine, are saying, she said middle class. What about everybody else? Higher and lower. What about all these classes? And you are absolutely right. The middle class and the upper class kids in our area of the peninsula have been college bound. The lower economic classes had not for many years. Things are changing now, absolutely. But let me tell you, in terms of what I'm talking about today, speed, it is not class sensitive. Speed, this pace, and technology cross every class boundary, every racial, every ethnic, whatever difference we can talk about. We've got iPhones. Everybody has an iPhone. It is the great leveler, the great equalizer, so that when I talk about speed and pressure, I will be talking about it for every child, every adolescent. The expression of the use of technology, how it's used, what for, may differ. But worldwide, technology is in use. A colleague of mine returned from a trip to Africa a few years ago, 5 years ago maybe. She said, she described it, a poor village. She was there on a mission to help. And she said there were no floors, there was no heating, no running water. And the family members pulled out their iPhones in the middle of Africa. And most of us, or many of us, may not be surprised at the reality of this. I say nowadays, we're not on the way to a global village. We're not on the way to globalized. We are there. We are living it, and I think that's part of the reason that we are in such a chaotic state, confused, out of control. We don't have new norms, but we don't have structures holding us through this period of what will come to be called transformational change, I believe. Absolutely. I don't want to throw out anything. I want to get our structures back. I want to get the value for structure back. And that can happen absolutely in the family first, in our wonderful support services agencies, the local, the one step at a time where it can happen. I forgot already to turn my first slide on because I am totally undone by PowerPoint. So I could finish the whole talk and I would have not turned it on. There's the title of my talk, When the Village Fails. How our society of chaos and pressure is hurting our children and families and us. We're going to get there in just a moment. In Silicon Valley for the last 20 years, pressure, 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 and this is all about success. All about having it, getting it, and finding the next big thing. That's it. We tell our youngest kids, you could be the one who finds the next big thing. In the 90s, I was in the midst of a big research project studying alcoholic families at MRI in Palo Alto. It was a wonderful research project. I was looking around and hearing from my teenage daughter then, and I said, the society, our culture, looks just like these active alcoholic families that I've been studying. Everybody's out of control, and there is a central organizing principle in these families for the chase. An alcoholic family gets organized slowly or quickly around the central organizing principle of denying that there's any alcoholism here, any problem for the teen, for the parent. There's no problem with alcohol, and here's why. Your mom needs to drink. Here's why we need to give our kids the alcohol that they're asking for. We deny that there's any problem. Then we explain why it's necessary to have alcohol, drugs, prescription medication nowadays. Why is it necessary? To calm us all down. Because we're so out of control. Okay? Deny, explain in a way that allows us to keep right on going and not change anything. We know how to explain our need for the substance, our need for pills, our need to go as fast as we can. We explain that in a way that we rationalize it, deny it, and don't have to change anything. That recipe there, that central organizing kernel that I'm outlining for you, is the core of addiction. And we get stuck. You can see, you get caught in it. You have to deny it, and you have to explain the reality of it. What happens when society loses control? When society becomes addicted to speed and can't slow down? Well, our world is topsy-turvy, as I'm describing for you. Just like any alcoholic family, our society is locked into unhealthy beliefs and behaviors and emotions in the service of always seeking more, better, faster. This goal that is the title of a new book, How to Do It, how to do more, how to do it better, and how to do it faster. Families, work, the culture we live in, and what we are passing on to our teens is that we all live in a society that's out of control, and we are calling it success. There's another double bind. We are out of control, and this is success. Individuals are drawn outward, away from calm, inner calm, and self-reflection, to the fast pace of a speedy life. We might even say we like it. It's a new high, going, until we don't like it, until we can't tell the high of going so fast from anxiety, from rampant chronic anxiety and fear. Fear that you can smell. It's so strong. What is speed? Speed is fast, rapid pace, rhythm, feel, tone, mood, movement, action. Speed is intensity, an urge to act now. Speed is tension. There goes the train. You should be on it. Blow on the dice. Down that shot. Press send. Speed is pressure. It's a rush to the future. We might say we value the now. We can't wait to get away from it into the future for what is coming, what's going to happen. Move quickly, worship efficiency and shortcuts. Listen to the language that we now have embedded. Isn't it a value? Don't you agree that efficiency is a good thing? Shouldn't we be efficient? People tell me that all the time, and I say, why? Now, I can also say, yes, of course. Again, it's not all or none. But we've reached the point in society where there's nothing but efficiency, and shortcuts is the way to go. Young people tell me, oh, I don't have to go through that whole thing. I know shortcuts. I'll just take shortcuts. Now look at the developmental process of learning. Used to be that learning through engagement with others, with tasks, feedback loops, that reciprocity, okay, so that we would be learning incrementally, building an internal structure, cognition, affect, behaviors, going up a developmental ladder. And when we go up a developmental ladder, we build in restraint, we build in the ability to pause before action, the ability to think before speaking or pressing send. We've done away with All of that in the service of fast, in the service of shortcuts. Progress equals instant results and instant outcome. There's no time to pause, to savor anything. What is savoring? Only progress. There is only forward motion or failure. Speed is in our beliefs and language now. Fast is the gold standard. Make it quick, make it brief, hurry. We devalue our highest abilities now. We don't stop to think, to feel, to quiet, to reflect. Action is the pace of choice. You've heard the phrase probably, what's the drug of choice? Society's drug is action. Now. Don't stop. Slow is boring. Waiting is losing. Thinking things through is overthinking. You don't need to do that. Let's get on. Let's get on. Let's get on. Thinking is a waste of time. It's going to put you behind. Accepting delay, developing patience, and endurance. What a word. Endurance, patience. That you then, the endurance, the patience, the delay, to be able to work through something, to stay with the tasks, has to be removed from a singular focus on outcome. Has to be separated once again. All of what I'm describing to you, the slower pieces, are necessary for healthy development. Or we used to think so. We used to believe that there was a developmental process. Action is a part of it always. Kids moving, kids being motivated, moving, absolutely. But we have come to a society where we've elevated behavior, impulse, to the highest level of function. Act first, think later. Okay? So I will soon be describing for you how we have trumped the value of cognition, which we have always relied on for kids to be able to think about things. Think before you act. Think before you take that drug. Think before you start. We've bumped thinking to impulse and behavior and action as the predominant mode. Think about that 4-year-old level again. We're all arrested, and some days and sometimes at 4 years old, full of anxiety, pressing, waiting for the relief. Okay? If you are someone in addiction sitting here this morning, you can identify with that feeling of relief. I can. When you get it, when you get the hit, whatever it is, oh, got it. Only to gear up again, to need another hit. We are modeling for our kids, getting to the next thing, getting. Okay? Behavior is at 4 years old. Cognition gets arrested at development and is pulled into regression. Kids are learning, they're going through grammar school and into high school, learning higher levels of cognition. They're pulled back by the action that is much more primitive. The action of impulse arrests at 4 years old, and cognition, higher levels of cognition, where we can think about reflection, think about mixed feelings, abstractions, okay, where we can get away from all or none. That level of thinking in our society now is disparaged, and we plummet down to cognition at the 4-year-old level. Cognition, behavior, what's happening with emotion in there, the triad. Okay? Emotion takes on the panic. Emotion is also arrested, and emotion will regress also down to match the 4-year-old level. So we have a society where we're slinging insults where young kids are on the playground, often with behavioral issues early on. Young kids, growing kids, adolescents, okay, behaviorally focused, We're looking for behavioral results because we're all out of control. When the adults are also out of control, we're in trouble. And that's where we are. I want to look at addiction now. What happens with addiction? What is it? You can see that addiction, I look at addiction as an attachment disorder, a developmental attachment disorder. And you might say, what? What about the biology of it? What about the brain? What about all that we're learning? All of that holds, and it's wonderful work. Mine is one perspective, this developmental view. Developmental view. And addiction, I look as an attachment disorder. Any one of us, absolutely any one of us, any human, as well as other species, any one of us can find something in our worlds that we take it, we approach it, we find it, and we have that aha experience. I feel better. This makes me feel better. A donut. First drink, second drink. Okay. Smoking, tobacco, smoking marijuana. And the medications that are prescribed now to give us that feeling, that aha of relief, because we are so stressed. We've got it all. And so what is addiction in this perspective? It's finding something outside yourself that works to quiet and calm temporarily, and we become hooked. That's the attachment. We become hooked on it. And when we're hooked on it, it starts to guide us in everything we do. It becomes the central organizing focus of my world. I get up in the morning. Nowadays, I get up in the morning, I look at my messages. I get up in the morning, I'm through the day, I'm checking. I have a phone call here because what else would I do but answer it? What else would I do? Teens. In trouble, yes. And as I'm telling you here, I'm not talking specifically, others will, about teens and their drug use and what we can do about it. I'm talking about a society that isn't holding them. I'm talking about the environment. The way an alcoholic family is damaging to everybody in it, even if you're not using. Even if you're not. The children of alcoholics live under the shadow and the developmental focus of their parents' alcoholism and their defenses to cope with it. Trauma. I am saying that in today's society, we have created a chronic, constant trauma by the need to keep up our pace. Kids used to drink to be grown up. They drank to get high, to try it out, to experiment. And when I talk about drinking, I'm talking about everything, just as I'm saying, what we're attaching to. Kids would block out problems, always. Adults block out problems by turning outside for something soothing, not developing internal soothing capacities that require that delay and endurance, and a self-reflection, an ability to say to oneself, what am I doing? What am I doing? What have I come to? What's happening? Okay? And to be able then, as I begin to look inside and look at myself, to be able to also say and claim responsibility for myself. Young and old, we no longer can do that. The newest use of substances and all kinds of new attachments for young people is self-medication, for self-regulation. One of the main developmental tasks is regulation, internal, to not be out of control like the infant is, to not be flailing constantly and chronically. So as a developmental process in the context of a human attachment, a human bond, usually to mother, father, to caregivers, all kinds of key people. But one of the core tasks of development is the self-regulation. When we are looking outside from infancy now, when we are looking into equipment, when we are externalizing everything, and not pulling it back and not having structures that are monitoring, that are creating the guidelines, as Karen has done. Wait till you see her guideline book. If we take away the structures, we are participating in dismantling what's necessary for children, adolescents, for their healthy development. You have to have structure. Many, many people today say the best thing, innovation, creativity, everything is invention. And so take away everything. What's the buzzword? Disruption. Disrupt it all. It's the best you could dream of. And I'm running behind saying, structure, structure. Don't throw it all out. We all thrive with disruption, creative process in the container of our healthy structures, our parents, the structures that hold us, our schools. And that's what I'm saying we have sacrificed and disparaged. We don't value them. We think freedom exists in no barriers, no structures, and one of the keys, no limits. No limits. Okay. Okay. I am going to go through the 4 core organizing factors of societal addiction. You will hear these translatable to the individual. They come from my first work on the individual. They come from the family, from any system that we look at. And now I am saying our society is locked into the 4 organizers of societal addiction. Loss of control. Loss of control, physical, emotional, mental, loss of control. What does that mean? We can't stop. We can't stop when we need to stop and want to stop. Sometimes, yes, we can. But reliably, no. We are become programmed to do that. Get up in the morning, check, 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 check. What's up, what's up? And to feel the hit of relief if my best buddy is on there. If my best buddy the kids don't email, if texted. I'm checking all the various sites. Okay. Loss of control. You can't stop. You're dominated by impulse. You've accommodated yourself to constant interruption. That's how we live now. We don't think twice. You all laughed. Fortunately, you got it. It was enough off the mark here. But in society, we just stop mid-sentence because somebody's taking a call, wherever we may be, okay? Or somebody's checking. We get anxious if we're not on constant alert. Let's listen to Jason, 14 years old. Jason screamed at his parents to leave him alone. He refused to come to the dinner table, refused to talk about his growing isolation, and he locked his door to prove he didn't have to deal with anybody or anything. When he stopped going to school, yelling that his computer gave him all the education and all the company he needed, his parents called for help. Jason finally agreed to talk to a family therapist, and his first words poured out. Tell it to my father. He's always on his iPhone and always griping about the stress of trying to keep up. He's been writing my case since I was 10, shouting about achievement and success. What am I throwing away? What's the matter with me? There's been no future for me except acing the SAT. Jason, is Jason real? Yes. I talked to Jason with another name at Hillview School in Menlo Park a few years ago, where I gave a lecture every year on addiction. And in the last few years that I was giving it, I was talking about internet addiction, and the kids were just restless, and sheepish, and they'd laugh. Some of them would raise their hand. We talk about craving. What does it feel like to crave? You gotta have it. You gotta have it. Okay? And every year after this lecture, somebody comes up. I hang out somebody comes up, and it started to be more and more the last couple years. Someone comes up to me, who's the basis for Jason. He said, I'm Jesse. That's who I called him then. I'm Jesse. I'm that kid. I can't turn off at night. I hide. I block my door. I put the chair up. My parents are scared to death. They're frantic. I can't stop. I'm up all night. What can I do? I had a wonderful relationship with teachers. We had a chain going for how kids could get help. But it has to be that somebody reaches out. And we have countless kids like Jason who are in their rooms, closed off to healthy development, completely arrested, locked into trying to do more, study more, and feeling very empty inside, very anxious and depressed. Yes, this is real. This is happening. Addiction is behavioral, cognitive, and emotional. Everybody thinks addiction is behavior. Stop the behavior, and again, we're fine. Wrong. It's the behavior, it's the thinking that gets distorted, and it's the emotion. In active addiction, we're dominated by panic, by the idea that we might not have our supply. We might not have that text coming in. There might not be something for me. And my panic rises and I can't think straight. Can't think straight. I get confused and scared. A top TV producer, Sherry, had an arrogant air and a demanding attitude. If she could work a 90-hour week, so should everyone she supervised. She didn't need sleep or quiet, and she didn't have any limits. Riding a fast track to success, nobody better challenge her. One day, she raged at a coworker and couldn't stop herself. She could not calm herself or stop the spew. Her tirade spread to all those in sight who ran in fear in a corporate setting. Human Resources recommended a few days off and that she see a psychiatrist. Sherry had one visit, stocked up on medications to quiet her down and treat her mood. She had mood problems, and stopped any further treatment. She missed an opportunity to look at herself, to look inward, and how out of control she'd become in her chase for success. This is a grown-up. Is Sherry a parent? Yes. Sherry is a parent, and her kids learned to try to stay out of her way. They learned and said, I've learned not to need my mother. She's just on a rampage. She's running around. She's busy being successful. She's not there. The kids often holed up in their rooms. This is not the aberration. This is the norm. Okay? Sometimes I think, are we living a reality TV show here in our area? No. Are we all acting because it seems we're so dominated by loss of control? Everything is a contest. You're a winner or a loser. You can't think with reason that embraces complexity. Okay. I'm going to run you through. We do have to go fast. 20 questions. Those of you who are familiar with the recovery, with 12-step, you've heard of the 20 questions. Are you an alcoholic? 1931. I adapted those to, are you a speed addict? So let's walk through them. And anybody daring, I'm not going to ask for examples because of our time, but think about yourselves, please. And if you feel, that's me, or feel willing to shoot up a hand, please do. Okay? Are you hooked on fast? Do you want to slow down, but you cannot? Have you lost control? Have you ever felt that? Do you know what that's like? Got to slow down. I'm just going to finish this, just going to finish this. Some of you may be saying, yeah, well, what about you? You know, have you ever been speedy? A lot of interviewers ask me this. Okay, so what about you? Are you above all this? No, indeed. Nope, absolutely. I have periods. I get heightened, I get anxious, I'm working on something, and I'm out of control. And snippy, oh yes, leave me alone, I need to finish. Am I scared? Yes. I regress. I think the sky is falling, and I think I'm falling. I am so easily prone. I think none of us is safe from this. You keep adding activities without taking any away. This is the new Silicon Valley coping mechanism. It's not so new. Okay? Just pile it on, and then, oops, forgot about that, lost it, it's gone. We drop everything. Calls drop, everything drops, and we've accepted it. Do you work longer and longer hours, but you don't ever finish? Pushing, that's addiction. That's addiction. Do you treat other problems, sleep, anxiety, depression? That's what I've just outlined for you. Do you act first and think later? That's the mantra in society. Don't stop to think. Do you check your email and reach for your phone, first thing and last? Yes. Now again, I realize that email is outdated, but not for me. I have to text my great nephew. He says, I don't do email. I don't do email, Aunt. And so I'm texting, learning how. Your feelings, your emotions. Do you feel internal pressure to live fast and act fast, which becomes a craving? The internal pressure, the need, turns into craving that you can feel actively, or it's just an agitated, chronic state. The dominance of the need to get there, to connect more rapidly. Now everybody talks about connection. Oh, we're going to connect. And we live in a connected society. We live in a society of chronic, repetitive contact minus connection, because it's often bouncing off, not integrating with, not reciprocity and mutuality. That's connection. We're calling it wrong. It's contact we have. Do you feel nervous without your tech gear in hand or pocket? Do you feel nervous? Okay. At a gathering just like this one last summer, the audience was, rueful and listening, nodding. You guys aren't nodding, and a woman raised her hand. She said, "I go to sleep with my iPhone. I go to sleep with it. I check it. I pat it." Okay. Mm-hmm. You know, the percentage came out, I can't quote it correctly, but a big percentage of people have acknowledged that they check their email during sex. Anybody want to share an example? Yes. This is addiction. What do we know that you take to bed? You take your bottle to bed. You take your best friend, the bottle, to bed. That's ancient. And now people take their iPhones to bed with them. And I asked the woman, who was so gracious to volunteer, she said she was scared. She scared herself, but she couldn't stop. She tried to put it down for one night, and she was up all night running to the other room to check. That is panic disorder. We can diagnose that. That's massive anxiety, and we can call it addiction very usefully. No, she has adapted herself to be chronically on and need to have it, and it doesn't soothe her at all. As soon as she stops looking, holding it, she has more anxiety. Okay. She gets up in the morning, she's got her phone, she checks it before she's out of bed, and she goes through the whole day. Do you feel the beep of your phone as a comfort that gives you a shot of adrenaline? There's the infusion. Beep. It's like the hit. It's like the first puff. It's like the needle. It's like the pill. Settle down. Do you feel you belong when you are rushing, stressed, and in action? Yep. Boy, I've arrived. Thinking. Okay, this is the biggie for me, thinking. And we almost never think about thinking. Do you believe you have no limits and you are entitled to live without limits? The chances are, on some level, you do. We all do as Americans, because we have our heritage of manifest destiny. Manifest destiny said we are entitled, we are exceptional. We hear that word today, how exceptional we are. We are entitled, okay, and manifest destiny to have all the land we wanted. And what did we do? We went after it because we had then the God-given right to go after it. That's in our heritage. Entitlement, exceptionality, grandiosity, which is either part of that package, or grandiosity is the result of believing you can do anything you want. There are no limits and there are no consequences. This is the addict. This is addiction. On some level, the addict says, it doesn't apply to me. I can stop any time. I'm not hurting myself. I'm just relaxing. These are all the kinds of things that the grown-ups say and the kids say. Do you believe you should think, feel, react, behave instantly? Do you believe you will fall behind if you slow down? Do you believe success equals fast? Slowing down is failing. People really believe, from this more primitive developmental level, from the level of 4 to 7-year-olds, concrete operations, people believe if I'm not always in action, then I'm failing. That's how it goes. Ask grown-ups. Yeah, you need to be thinking, what's next? Should you only feel good, only high? If you have other feelings, is that a sign of failure? In our society, yes. What's the matter with you? What's the matter with you? You should be feeling good. Is stress the price of success and chaos is normal? Yes, because that's what is normal. That's what's normal. Is the new intimacy through technology? Less time for offline relationships is the price of success. Instant action is a virtue, and you can overcome anything with enough willpower. Do you believe all change must be big to count? In our area, yes. And that's why I love local. We have such a rich, valuable, important local culture of resources, of help for addiction, for mental health, operating such as adolescent counseling services and all the other sponsors. We have it. Local is your next step. Small is your next step. I'm going to go ahead because I'm coming to the end and I wanted some time. First of all, though, I'm going to put in number 2 in your packet. We're going back to the core factors, but I'm not going to slide us back, which is a belief in no limits. We just got that one. We got that. And the belief in no limits, I think, becomes the organizer, the base and the core. And when you talk about what do we do, how do we fix this mess, think about returning to an acceptance of limits, and then begin to think, how do we achieve that? Read Karen's guidebook. She spells it out beautifully. The limits. Who sets the limits? The kids cannot do it for themselves. We are failing handing them the responsibility for themselves. Okay. We, parents, grandparents, set the limits, and we learn to hold them. And the biggest task for you to take away today is how hard it is to be a parent, to be a teacher, to be in any setting where it is your job to set the limits, and then you have to put the time in to monitor, to hold them, to pay attention, to be engaged. Because it is the grown-ups who have created the society that we don't have time for that anymore. No more time. So I want to tell my child, sit down, behave, and then I don't want to have to be engaged anymore. So the lesson is for the parents. Not only do we need an acceptance of limits, but back also to the structure and the need for engagement. The The number 3 factor is a belief in the omnipotence of human power. What is that? That sounds suspicious. That belief in the omnipotence of human power is the belief in will. When you have a belief in no limits, you can do anything. If you put your mind to it, you can do anything you will yourself to do. Just go for it. I happen to believe that we as humans have limits and have limited capacities. Limited capacities. And part of our developmental process is to learn what our limits are. Learn what our limits are. But when we don't believe in them, then we believe, what does it come down to? Try harder. A belief in no limits and a belief that everything is possible if you will yourself gets you to trying harder. And that spins into motion, loss of control, and the whole cycle that I have presented. The final, dichotomous thinking. This could be, for all of us, the biggest of all of them. Dichotomous thinking, what's that? That's you're right or wrong. You're winning or you're losing. You are a success or you're failing. America from start to now has always believed that certainty is what we aspire to. We should be able to know everything, find everything. We disparage uncertainty, wishy-washy. We disparage uncertainty. We disparage abstraction. Get real. Tell it like it is. Decide, are you with me or against me? This is an enormous problem. Dichotomous thinking arrests us all in a younger level of development. Put us on the playground. There we are. Life is not all or none. Life is not binary, even though much of technology is. We have got to get back to both and to the complexities, the ambiguities, and the great, great freedom and value in being able to say, I don't know the answer to that. The family that's dominated by active addiction of any kind is dangerous to everybody in it. That's where I come from in my work and my personal life. A society dominated by chaos and a drive for nonstop action becomes toxic for everyone as well, and in the same ways. How do you grow up and work in a community that presses everybody to get on board? Okay. Let's face societal speed. There are many more than 3. However, awareness, first of all, we recognize it. Accepting loss of control and the need for limits. Parents need to take back authority, another key message. And you heard, I know how hard that will be because we're all going. It's going to involve the setting of limits and the parents' ability with support to hold those limits and small steps. The individual asks, step by step by step, what am I doing? Society is made up of individuals who have ganged together to ride this wave that is now loss of control. Okay. Is it all or none? No. I don't want to do away with anything. I want to keep up progress. But what I want to do is add back structure, limits, a belief system that values family structures, parental authority. Guidelines for change. You seek a mentor who believes in slowing down for guidance and support. There are people out there who can get it and give you support. You develop a recovery action plan. You think about what is one small step that you can do. If you never have dinner together anymore, you have one dinner together, no technology at the table. You go from 0 to 1. Not, we're committing to 5 nights a week. You won't get to 3. Small, incremental is the only way for change that can be developmental and lasting. Otherwise, it's piling on only to collapse because there's no foundation. We build with incremental change, we build a new foundation. You make those small steps. You learn to pause, to reflect on your behavior, your feelings, and your thinking. We settle down. We think about things. You ask yourself, this is a mantra for speed and slowing down. You ask yourself, what am I doing? I learned that from a guy on an airplane. He talked to me after we landed, and he told me a story, it's in the book, about how his life had become out of control, how he lost everything. And he said, you know, I had to ask myself, what am I doing? And I thought, there it is. There it is. That's how we pause. That's the moment of truth for many of us. What am I doing? And I'm here to talk to all of you who are grown-ups, many of you parents, teachers, therapists, about what am I doing and how am I providing structure for my teens? How am I present? How do we communicate this to all the people we work with? Rather than what sometimes happens is, fix my kid, fix my child. You feel the reality of limits and you face the feeling of failure. You become aware of feelings. You learn to listen to them. You trust that the high of impulsive action is not the feeling you seek. A wider range of new feelings. You're going to trust that deep, intimate connection, not contact, connection, exists in a slow down, quiet state. Believe that. We connect deeply with one another when we are quiet, present, and listening. Then we can connect. And it enriches us. It enriches us. You believe in the reality of limits. You recognize and challenge entitlement. You challenge that belief in willpower. Small steps, slower sense of time. New definition of success. Here we go. Your best effort, you do try, you do take action, but within a structure of limits. There is something to hold you so that you don't end up with nothing left but to try harder in a vacuum with no supports. The values of delay, endurance, and enough. Enough. Growth and change aren't instant. Reflection. You challenge your all or none thinking. Wait till you get down to try that. I work as a clinician and over and over and over again with people who are new in the process of looking at themselves, with people who are long into it. Well, which is it? Which is it? Is it right or is it wrong? Now, we all can easily revert to wanting that kind of certainty. It isn't likely to be either. And you give new meaning to service. Wow, that's a big one. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for this great privilege.